This podcast is brought to you by Avocado Mattress. And if healthy, comfortable sleep matters to you, this is one organic brand worth knowing. That's because what you sleep on actually matters.
Most mattresses rely on synthetic foams and chemical materials that trap heat, break down over time, or off-gas. Avocado does it differently. Their mattresses are handcrafted with natural materials, organic latex, organic wool, and organic cotton, designed to be naturally cooling, incredibly supportive, and long-lasting. They're certified organic by GOTS and meet multiple non-toxic and safety certifications. Made for people who care about their health and the environment without sacrificing comfort. I love that Avocado proves you don't have to choose between comfortable, supportive sleep and your values. And now, during our Earth Month sale, you can get up to 15% off Avocado mattresses. Just go to avocadogreenmattress.com. Get up to 15% off at avocadogreenmattress.com. avocadogreenmattress.com.
Hey there, and welcome to the Think Fitness Life podcast. We're fueled by the incredible clients who inspire us every day, allowing us to elevate their health and fitness journeys. On this show, you'll gain valuable insights from top professionals, hear inspiring transformation stories, and discover the knowledge and motivation to create your own best life. Let's dive in. As someone who has continuously used therapy as a way to heal and elevate my personal performance, I know wholeheartedly that you cannot always read the label when you're in the jar. And that's why it's so helpful to have a professional in your corner to talk to. This podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp to provide our listeners with the opportunity to work with a licensed therapist from the comfort of your own home. Receive 10% off your first month when you sign up by going to betterhelp.com/TFL. That's betterhelp.com/T as in think, F as in fitness, L as in life. And remember, you're not alone. There are people out there who can help.
Welcome back to the Think Fitness Life podcast. With the world of Instagram and social media in this fast-paced society that we live in, many people start to get left behind when it comes to health and nutrition, let alone what to eat for food choices, and they're getting misguided. We see information about this diet and this sort of eating and that sort of eating, and it really becomes a mess. And that's why we like to come on this podcast and sit down and talk about how that can be changed and navigate and help people navigate and guide people on how to make those choices, aka the healthy choices, and actually make the right decision. And that is huge. And it comes to the point where when people go grocery shopping, I look at other people's carts and I kind of stop for myself and I'm like, whoa, like that, this just doesn't look like it should when you're looking at other people buying stuff. And inside of me, I want to be like, oh, okay, I need to say something, or I want to say something. But yeah, I don't, because like it's not the right time and place. But now with the growth of more and more companies and more apps, we can have that choice in the palm of our hand. And we are bringing on a person today who invented GreenChoice, which guides you into that realm of understanding food, and it gives food a score and how you can optimize your health through that. And it is a big game changer for when we start to get into the world of how are you modifying. Welcome to the show. And how do you pronounce your name? Galen. I wasn't sure. I was gonna butcher it. Welcome to the show. And we're gonna start kind of really at the beginning. What brought you into the world of GreenChoice and healthy eating and navigating this world of the health and fitness?
For me, I guess there's a few different ways I can answer that question. I have always been very active. I was a little ADD kid who was constantly running around, and the way I'd get my energy out was through sports. I played soccer. I still play soccer, but I played in college. I played a little semi-pro here in the States and also abroad. And I was a two-sport college athlete, soccer and running track. Physical activity, fitness has always been pretty core to my lifestyle and keeping me happy, keeping me sane, keeping my mind right. And in terms of how I started GreenChoice, it really began as a grad student when I wasn't playing soccer consistently anymore. And yet I was grocery shopping for myself consistently for the first time in the aisle, trying to figure out how to make healthy choices, thinking about food's impact on my health and my mind in a new way. I wasn't running 2 hours every day. And I wasn't thinking just about food as fuel, but really food as an integral piece of my well-being. And you get into the aisle and you've got hundreds of cereals to choose from or thousands of snacks to choose from. And they're all making claims to get your attention and to make you feel like they're the right choice or a healthy choice. And as you dig into those claims, you start to find that many of them are misleading, to say the least. That was really the catalyst for GreenChoice, was to say, this decision is extremely complex. There's a lot of research and data out there, but I don't have the time to sort through it. And most people, when they step into that aisle, they don't have the time either. They've got kids, or they've got to get home, they've got work, they've got all sorts of things on their mind. And doing nutrition math and checking ingredients and Googling claims is the last thing that even a health conscious person wants to do. And if you are doing it, kudos to you. I know that it takes a lot of power, and it's hard to always feel confident about those choices. That was really what started GreenChoice, and we set out on a mission to give people an app and a tool that they could use to scan foods, to see their health impacts, and to be able to find foods that best match their particular health needs and goals.
And I think that's the biggest part is, as a coach, I would always know and do the research and look up this stuff. And after a while, you memorize it. But I don't expect the average person to understand how many calories and how many grams of protein are in an egg or this kind of food. And there's some foods that, yeah, like I'm going to guess at because I don't know what certain processed foods are, but I can take a gander. But really what it would come down to is me talking to my clients about this and then not helping other people when the rest of the world's going out and they have no idea. When they look at a nutrient label, they'd have no idea what's going on. And it's like, how do we convey what we know to them? And lo and behold, now we have an app and you can just scan the food and it's going to tell you right then and there. Like, that's impressive because now people don't have to even type in, I hate to say it, people don't even want to Google search stuff anymore. They want it instantaneous. Then they can make that decision right then and there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you Google stuff, you're still going to get a mix of answers. And you can go on to social media and get a mix of truths. And often they are half truths based in half science. And how do you really know what's what and what you should care about? And for us, the work began really by talking. We interviewed thousands of shoppers, talking to just average Americans like ourselves to say, what do they care about? But then going to academic partners and to the scientists, to registered dietitians and nutrition scientists and environmental scientists to understand what was materially important to people's health and the impacts of these foods. And from there, we built our science and how we analyze food and their healthfulness. And when you scan a food, you'll see an evidence-based food health score from 1 to 100. It's color-coded traffic light style to make it really easy. Green, yellow, orange, red. And then you can click in, if you want, to see additional information as to why that item got the score it did. And every item is scored for nutritional quality, ingredient processing, ingredient safety, and climate footprint. And if you care about one of those dimensions more than the other, you can click in to see the score it got for that particular category. And then we'll show you healthy swaps. Imagine you're looking at snack bars, protein bars, and you see an option that's got a 30. We'll show you alternatives that are higher scoring protein bars in the store that you're in that meet your dietary preferences. And that's the second layer, is you get to set your particular preferences, whether it's high protein or no artificial food dyes or any other dietary need that you might have or be following, that those recommendations are filtered to them because these are, at the end of the day, personal decisions. And I'd say one other thing I'll note here that you mentioned is, like, even I, as a pretty educated shopper now, who's been building GreenChoice and working with experts in the space for the last 6 years still really enjoys having the help of GreenChoice. I scan foods all the time. Why? Because 15,000 new products launch in the US every year. And unless you're only shopping produce in the perimeter, which many of us aren't, you've got new choices and new products available to you all the time.
And that's the crazy thing, is there's just so many different choices. And then let alone you go to different supermarkets or different stores and there's different brands of this, or there's different choices. And you're right. Like, how do you start to break down every single thing that there's for protein bars people ask me about? I don't even know that are on the market, but they're brand new, and people are like, well, what do you think about this? And I'm like, well, hold on, I have to go do the whole research. And it's fascinating when you dive into it. And lo and behold, like the research, it can take a while. You look up, hey, I'm going to look up this protein bar. Then you get a rabbit hole down one ingredient, and then you're reading some other stuff. And then you can go another ingredient, which you'll find your information, but to sift through that amount of data, it takes a while and it's a lot. But I do like how you built that out. It said, okay, nutritional quality, and then processing level, and then ingredient safety and climate footprint. Because it's like you get the nutrients in a lot of stuff, but a lot of people will think, oh, this has a good nutrient profile, but they don't see all the processing that goes behind it or the ingredients in it. And nowadays, there's even new ingredients hitting the shelves that weren't around when you or I were in school and learning this stuff. It's like, okay, well, now we got to catch up to it, which
Absolutely.
all your data and your app is doing for the individual right off the bat.
Absolutely. And the reality is we have lax regulatory standards by comparison to many European countries or East Asian countries. What is in our food is different. The products that these large international CPGs are making are formulated different in the US than they are in Canada or other countries. And there's a piece of that is the question of supply chain and what's available. But a part of that is what are the standards for what can be in our food? And historically, we have allowed additives and allowed ingredients that are not healthful for us. And there's a documented history of that in this country. To your point, there is a lot in our food that even an educated shopper is not going to be aware of unless they really are checking every ingredient list. And that's an extremely time-consuming process. You mentioned protein bars. Couple interesting stats here in advance of this podcast, because I wanted to bring something unique that listeners might not have heard before. We have a database of over 1 million foods and counting that we have analyzed across both our food health scores, but in addition to hundreds of different dietary and health attributes. In this analysis, we looked at 8,842 protein and snack bars in the US food supply. Very representative sample of what you'll find across the country. 52% of protein bars are highly processed.
Doesn't shock me there. I know, and people need to hear that. They got to go listen to that again. It's like it's processed that people don't understand, that they think they're eating good, but are they really? No. I mean, you're saying 52%. Anyone goes in a store, 50% of the protein on the shelves, and probably mostly all of them are highly processed.
Yeah. And processing isn't inherently bad unto itself, but nearly half of protein bars, 47.6%, have harmful ingredients. When we look at them for food ingredient safety concerns, pesticide, herbicide residues, food additives, artificial sweeteners, things that many of us are trying to avoid consuming consistently in our diet, right? 47% have them, right? Protein bars are 78% more likely to have harmful ingredients than regular bars. You are not, you're more likely or almost equally likely to pick a protein bar off the shelf that has harmful ingredients than does not. And you've got lots of choices. As I mentioned, this is looking at over 8,000 protein and snack bars to choose from. To your point, there are a lot of questions that you might be asking or could be asking when you're making these decisions.
And I'm sure there's nothing, we're not going to name any brands, but I'm sure there's some well-known brands on that list that would have some people really shocked. And people will think, oh, protein bars are like, that's the way to go. They put them in the health section. And I remember from time, I don't know about you, but like I would do them too. Like, okay, protein bars, like I'm getting protein. Then you start really looking at the ingredients. And for me, it really started like, I don't know, you probably remember like the MedRx protein bars from back in the day that like you eat them, they taste like chalk, but they have like a 50 grams. You start reading the ingredients in that stuff, and it's just like absolute, just it's a lot of it's garbage. And the protein bars nowadays, they make them seem healthy from the label, but when you start to dive into the ingredients, you're like, well, I see how it's going to last on the shelf, but this is not good for the insides of the body. So I think that's very important. And it's a great stats. Like you're getting 47% of protein bars that are like, just have garbage, and I don't say garbage, but like harmful ingredients in them. Like, is it really worth it?
Absolutely. And a follow to that is you also have a wide range of choices. Just sticking with the protein bars example, we call our score a food grade score. And then within it, you have those 4 categories that we discussed. If you look at the range for protein bars, it's incredible. On the low end, it gets as low as items scoring an 18 out of 100. And on the high end, 96 out of 100.
Ooh.
You have a huge range of choice. And it's because there are more and more minimally processed, less processed options with real ingredients that are whole foods and have high quality ingredients that you're going to be happy with. And then there's the other end of the spectrum. And yeah, you just can't tell from simply looking at the front of that package.
And that's where companies and I hate to say, like the big food start to misguide people, because people think they're eating healthy when they're actually really not. And when it comes to, you said 52% are processed, like processed foods aren't bad, but people need to realize some processed foods, the calories are more bioavailable. So your body's going to absorb more calories from processed food than its natural unprocessed source. You could be playing a double-edged sword. You get bad ingredients and you're actually taking in more calories that are bioavailable from whatever that processed food is, rather than your alternative, like you said, shopping the perimeters where it's Whole Foods or something, just putting that out there. But then you have your app that's saying, hey, this is what the score is. Here's how to narrow it down. And for me now, I'm probably going to spend the next time I go shopping 2 hours scanning everything on the app to find, all right, I got to find the protein bar, because now I want to know, because it now helps me. I don't recommend protein bars, but it helps me guide if people like, hey, if I want to do protein bars and they're dead set on it, what is the best avenue for that person? Like, this is a tool that even coaches can use to say, hey, we're going to break down all this stuff and see, and then I can measure it and say, well, on your app, on the GreenChoice, it gets a score of 97 compared to this bar, which gets a score of, let's say, 36. And what that does for a lot of people, it will start to put value on the bars. If I say bar X is a 97, but bar Y is a 36, people are going to be like, oh, and here's the score rating, rather than me just saying, oh, this bar is crap because it has this in it. And now they're going to see a lot more.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm glad you mentioned calories, because calories obviously is a very important consideration in a weight loss journey, or if someone's even looking to build muscle mass. And at the end of the day, it's also just one measure. It's one indicator. And if you just look at calories, you can miss a lot of what we're talking about. Understanding the ingredient profile of what you're consuming is really critical, because my go-to is sugar sweetened beverages. You can look at the proliferation now of foods with no added sugar, or beverages with no added sugar that are just sweetened with sugar alcohols or artificial sweeteners. But what else is in that product? And you can end up with a really low calorie option that has ingredients that you don't really want to consume on a day-to-day basis. I think in addition to thinking about calories, you've got a lot of other considerations, and it can be really hard to consider all these things when shopping or making these decisions. And the other note that I'll make on protein bars, just while we're on it, is we're right around the corner from winter ski season. And I'm a snowboarder. I'm definitely going to be out on the mountain this year. And if I'm out there for a full day, I will take high protein snacks, and I'll throw an apple and some cheese in my pocket and other things that are what I have space for. But there's a place for me to bring a protein bar as well. And it's really helpful. And can I find an option that is not just like satiating, but also healthy for me? And I can, but just grabbing anything off the shelf doesn't necessarily meet that need.
Now for your app, does it rate some of the well-known ones high, or like, will people be shocked when they get in there? And some of the well-known and like people that go to, they're going to be like, ooh, maybe time to make a decision.
I would say you're going to see some very well-known protein bars scoring very low. You're also going to see some well-known ones scoring quite high. RX Bar is a good example of someone who came in and really innovated in this space, bringing simple ingredients, whole ingredients to a space that historically was highly processed. They're not always the highest protein option, but they are consistently a very high scoring option because of how simple that ingredient list is. It's very clean.
And that's one I find with protein bars is the hardest. If you try to maximize protein in the bar, I don't think they can do it because they have to add more to it. Like it's like you can't just add whey protein to a bar because it's not going to last on the shelf. So
yeah,
I do give like we make our homemade ones, like they taste decent for me because I've eaten protein my whole life, but most people be like, no way.
Yeah.
But that's the one thing I've found with protein bars: the cleaner the ingredient list gets, the harder it is to get mass amount of protein in. But you have to applaud them for doing it, the companies, because they're staying tried and true, and it's this is what it's going to be for the serving, which is fine. And you know, obviously someone like you hitting the slopes all day, you're probably gonna be like, yeah, I could crush 30 to 40 grams of protein. But your average person probably doesn't need a bar like that. You know, certain athletes, they might look to that and be like, okay, how can I get something on the go that's calorie dense and protein dense? Because you're right, you're not going to sit there midday and be like, hey, I'm going to have a hearty meal. You're going to be like, no way, what's easy on the go? I can maximize time.
Yeah. And I was just going to note that, like, to that end, like, just know what you're consuming, whether it's protein bars or anything. We could talk about any category, and any category, you're going to have a huge range of options like this. And if you're taking a protein bar or snack bar that is highly processed, that does have a bunch of added sugars, that does have a bunch of artificial ingredients, and it's super high in protein, and you've made that decision for yourself, that's your call. That's your choice. It's your right. Just know what you're consuming, right? And I think the more we can give people the tools that they need to have that insight and to have transparency in the food system, the better equipped we are to make healthy choices for ourselves. And we're going to make trade-offs, and it's within your right to make those trade-offs.
And you do a good job, because it's not just another app that's going to track calories. And I remember back in my grad days where you had to go to certain apps and put in the food, and it would give you the nutrient breakdown and the calories, and you would go in and do it over and over again every single day. And I found, like, it's boring for me to do. There's no way a layman's person is going to go, oh, I'm going to enter all the food I did for today. And I've had clients that try it, and to be honest, like after 3 days, they're like, it's just time consuming. I don't want to spend 10 minutes entering this food in, this food in, this food in. And what your app does different, it's not just spitting out calories, because other apps, I think people get hyper focused on spitting out, oh, you're getting X amount of calories from this. And then they're doing nothing with that information, but total calories at the end of the day. Where GreenChoice, you actually get a score, and it says to aim for a green score above 75, which people are trying to eat as much food in the great and good quality to keep that high. but it also teaches people to have a different relation with food in my eyes, rather than saying, oh, this is 100 calories, going, oh, this food is in the orange. We need to kind of limit this food. And after a while, people are going to get used to thinking, okay, if I associate this food with orange and this food with red, I need to make these choices less and less if I need to get a good score and improve my health. It's more making behavior change based on teaching or having people learn that this food will fall in a certain category and it's going to stay there because of your app, which I think is great, because it's not just an arbitrary number. People are going to now be ingrained, and they'll know the 30th time they go food shopping that bag of chips is in the red, and they're going to have to make, like you said, they're going to make the choice. They'll know, oh, it's in the red. Am I going to go for it today, or am I going to change and do something different?
Yeah, exactly. It's about making swaps, little swaps, and the app is designed to create a nudge environment that is conducive to that. We're giving you little nudges. When you scan one item, if you have higher scoring alternatives that meet your dietary needs, we're going to recommend those to you as substitutes, right? You can, when you search and you have a dietary profile that you set, those profile preferences are going to get set as filters. If you're searching for cereals and you have a no added sugar preference, you're going to see a ton of cereal options, but all of them will have no added sugar. And it's all about making it really easy to make these little substitutions little by little. We're not going to say, hey, instead of these chips, eat carrots. Right? We'll say, instead of these corn tortilla chips, here are other corn tortilla chips that are a bit better for you. And then as you work that, it's a ladder and it's all relative. And no one food, like at the end of the day, is like going to make or break your health, right? It's about these choices in aggregate over time. And to your point, understanding where they fall in the spectrum, in that range of choices that you have and how healthy they are for you, gives you that knowledge to then say, this week, I'm going to make a swap. I'm going to try something a little bit different. And when you do that consistently over time, your diet and your basket can get a lot healthier. And that's what we've measured. Over time, using our app, using this information, baskets get healthier and healthier.
And I'm sure there's foods that, let's say like tortilla chips, there's some companies that make it poorer quality, poorer ingredients, but there's some companies that make them where they're actually healthy and they're not bad because of the ingredients that they use, where some people might go, I can't eat chips at all because they're all bad, rather than, hey, we're getting healthier options of things that people can now have and like, and that can make their dietary choices a little bit easier. Because I've always looked at some of that stuff, like, how can I find the healthiest tortilla chip? Because every once in a while, someone's going to want chips and salsa or chips and guac.
Totally.
But
delicious.
And there's great companies that are doing great work to make them better quality. And to be fair and honest, like, they're not going to last as long as some of these ultra processed, but that's okay, because that helps people learn that the better quality ingredients, the more whole the food, the quicker it's got to be eaten, and it's not going to last as long. You're not first of all, you're not going to waste as much food and let it just kind of sit in the cabinets. You're going to be inclined to be like, hey, I'm going to eat it. Also, it might be more expensive, right? Hey, to say it, like, healthier food, sometimes you're going to make better choices, but it might be a little more expensive. You're not going to let that food also go to waste because you're paying for it. I think there's a lot of good that comes out of it.
Absolutely. There could not agree with you more. And I think, just to step back for a second, why are we talking about highly processed foods? Why did I bring that up as an initial stat to share? Is the consistent consumption of ultra processed, highly processed foods is very closely linked to chronic disease and illness and many of the health issues that plague this country. 70% of Americans are overweight, 40% are obese, 7 of the top 10 causes of death are diet related, and it's completely preventable by diet. I'm sure you're talking with your clients all the time about this two-sided sword, right? Food can both harm us and heal us. And if you're trying to avoid highly processed foods, a couple really actionable stats I give you today are, when we look at categories bread and bakery, frozen foods, snacks and dips. These are the three most highly processed foods categories in a grocery store. Right? 67% of bread and bakery is highly processed. 59% of frozen foods, 45% of snacks and dips. If you're in those categories, you have more work to do to navigate if you're trying to consume less processed foods. And one other note I'll share, among highly processed products, there's an 80% chance it will contain added sugar, a 70% chance it has refined oils, and a 66% chance it contains artificial additives.
Yeah. So it's like a guarantee now with processed food, because they have to make it palatable. And that's where you're going to get the oils to make it last. And there's somewhere, whether it's refined sugar or even fake sugar, as you'll notice in the energy drinks, right, that people now drinking where it's 0 calories.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's a hard thing that, like, hey, with more processed it's going to contain some of those foods or ingredients. Yeah.
One other stat on that is, depending on where you're shopping, you either have more or less work to do when it comes to finding clean foods with simple ingredients that are healthful. If you're shopping at a natural food store, like a Whole Foods or a Sprouts, you're looking at about 15% of their product catalog being highly processed. If you're shopping at a conventional retailer, like a Kroger or an Albertsons, you're looking at about 40% of their catalog being highly processed. You are 3 to 3.5 times more likely to encounter highly processed foods if you're shopping at a conventional retailer than a natural retailer. Now, not everybody has access or the financial means to afford shopping at a natural food store. If you're shopping at a conventional store, you just have more work to do. There are plenty of minimally processed or moderately processed healthful foods at that store. You just have a little bit more research and time you need to spend to navigate that store and find those options. And that's an area where GreenChoice can help. It also is an area where you have to invest a little bit more time.
And for you said you got over 1 million products or foods. Are most of them in like most generic stores, or is it select stores? Like how do you get the I don't know if the rights, or how'd you be able to do that and be like, hey, we're gonna take your food and we're gonna score it? Because I'm sure there's some companies that are like, whoa, I don't like this, but hey, we're gonna do it. How'd you get that to manage, and can people find most of the foods in every supermarket, or use this app in every supermarket?
First, yes, you can use the GreenChoice app to scan foods in any grocery store. The average coverage for retail is about 80%. Odds are you go into the grocery store that you shop at regularly, you're going to be able to scan around 80% of the foods in that store, and hopefully more. And hopefully you'll see more and more items scannable as you use the app. We doubled the size of our database over the past year, from about 500,000 to 1 million in 12 months. And we intend to do the same this coming year. How do we pull this data? There are many different public data sources. We pull from a combination of public and private databases. We have retail partners, wholesale partners, data syndicators in the space, public databases. We're pulling from about 40 different sources to get this information on the products themselves. And then we're using our team and our academic partners' research and guidelines to evaluate, analyze, and score those foods based on their nutritional profile, their ingredient list, the claims they're making, and more. Hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah.
And I'd say we are looking at right now, when we're talking about the stats I'm sharing, we're talking about 25 of the largest national and regional retailers and the products that they offer.
I mean, to put it all together, and your team is coming up with scores for these foods, and I'm sure there's a lot of calculations involved. Like that's impressive to find out, hey, we arbitrarily are starting to calculate and put foods against each other to show you where their scores are ranking, kind of setting the tone of overall being like, hey, what is a good food and what is not? Because remember, like last year, there was that debacle about Lucky Charms and meat, and there was certain ratings by certain things that kind of caused a storm. And I know that a lot of different research, I'm not saying it's valid or not valid, looks at certain food based on different nutrients a little bit different. But it's good to see that your algorithm is starting to say, hey, this is a green in different categories, not just saying, oh, this is like nutrient, because there's some foods that are more nutrient dense than others and might have a different score. But like, you can't take a vegetable and compare it to meat, because it's like, they're both great, but they're going to have complete different nutrient profiles.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And for us to not have an arbitrary system and to have it really based in science, we've done a couple very intentional things. First, the business is a public benefit company, which means we have a obligation to the public to maintain our defined public benefit, which in our case is fostering a healthy, just, and sustainable world through our daily food choices. That might sound lofty, but what it means is, at its core, is in addition to maximizing shareholder profits, I am responsible as CEO, and our team is responsible to also ensuring that increasing profits and driving growth of the business never comes at the expense of our public benefit. No brand can pay to influence or change or alter its score ever. The second piece is we have a very defined conflict of interest policy. And we have a science advisory board that analyzes our standards and reviews our standards for the latest science and research on a quarterly basis. That's independent from the business. And then the third piece is that the way that we score items is based on existing standards, not just something that we invented internally. Though we have internal experts, we've elected to follow existing guidelines. For example, if we look at our nutritional quality score, it is based on the US dietary guidelines and guidance from the World Health Organization, because we felt that neither one alone was what we needed. We needed a combination of those two pieces to really guide how we evaluated nutritional quality and density. And to your point, just looking at nutritional density is not enough. And that's why we look at these other dimensions, because you can have a food that's highly fortified in nutrients of concern, yet is also highly processed and contains a bunch of harmful ingredients. The different scores serve as checks and balances. In that example, you have a processing score and an ingredient safety score to provide that check and balance to an item that's highly fortified, but maybe doesn't contain healthy ingredients.
Yeah. And that's huge, because like you mentioned earlier, even in Europe, there's a whole different regulations and guidelines. And I gotta have to say it, like, we are behind in the US because of big pharma and big food and politics, lobbyists. Like, Europe's doing a lot of good things. And it seems like the GreenChoice takes a lot of that stuff with World Health, and the US is like in combining it to make sure people are guided correctly, and not just guided based on what the food pyramid or my plate or whatever kind of was constructed years and years ago here, that's kind of misled people throughout. And it's better for overall people to live their lives with the knowledge that they have, rather than what they're getting fed kind of from, I want to say the government, but it kind of is, right? Like, you're not getting bought. Like you said, you're not getting bought by Coca-Cola to put Coke as like a yellow product, when we kind of all know that like this is not going to be a yellow product. But to this day, a lot of companies still do that. And it's much appreciated that we have companies like yours that are saying, hey, we're not going to take buyouts or bribes from big food just so they can sway your score.
No, yeah, absolutely not. And at the same time, there are food manufacturers and producers that are doing better and better work in offering us healthful options and minimally processed options. And I think we're in an exciting time in that we have never had more choice than we do today, and we've never had more information and data available to us than we do today to navigate that choice. That said, the tyranny of choice is what we call it, right? It's when you have so much choice, it's completely overwhelming, and we just want an easy option and an easy answer. Just having more choice without a way to navigate it is not actually helpful. And I think that's what we've dealt with over the last 2 decades, is an increase in choice that isn't necessarily meeting the highest quality standards when it comes to health, and no real easy way to navigate it. And add in a layer of a lot of misinformation from all different angles,
Yeah.
it is very, very difficult for consumers. And I think it's reflected in where we're at as a country when it comes to our health. And it's not a good place. And we've never spent more on healthcare than we did last year. And yet we've never had a sicker population.
A lot of it is from the food. Most of it is from dietary choices.
Absolutely.
Now
Absolutely.
you're saying go for it.
No.
Well, you're saying when it gives you a recommendation of something better or with a better score, like let's take our tortilla chips example. Does it then guide you towards where you can find that food, or it just says, hey, this is the better option, and then the user has got to go find it? Or is it like, hey, here's the better option. It might not be in this store, but it's in store over here.
Yeah. We're adding that functionality right now. Right now it's broad and across our full database, but soon you'll be able to see exactly where it's at and be able to filter for the store that you are in. And I will say we also work directly with grocery stores to integrate our app and our scores and our technology into their own app and into their shelf tags. With in some stores today that we work with, you can actually go into the store and see the food green scores right next to the price on the shelf tags. And if you want additional information, scan a QR code to see that detail behind the score and those recommendations. Yeah, we're equally excited. In an ideal world, you don't even need to take our app out. You don't have to take anything out. That information can be at your fingertips in any store you're in. That's what we're working on. That's the future we want to see. And for them and those solutions, when you're in a retailer that works with us store, all the recommendations are based on what's in that store. And through their app, you can filter and search by that store. But to your question about the GreenChoice food scanner app, which is available to anyone, anywhere, yes, soon you'll be able to see exactly where those products are located.
And if it's starting to become eventually in stores, like you can just see it, like here's the green, here's a red choice, like you're going up against like Goliath here, and I like it. I'm for it because arbitrary, we know there's going to be some cereals that are just crap and sugar. Those companies aren't going to like it, but it's a hard truth that the companies have to come to terms with, to say like, hey, yes, their food choices might not be the best. Here's what can cause X, Y, and Z from disease, sickness, obesity, and we're going to put it right in front of your face. Because I think, like you said, it's allowing the consumer to make that decision, and it's not kind of hiding stuff and be like, oh, well, this says it's fortified with vitamins, but right next to it, here's that red dot that says GreenChoice score in the pour. Like, this is now going to make that decision even better, because when people start seeing, well, I picked red, that's going to go in their head, well, am I actually optimizing my health? I think that's going to be awesome. And when you see stores start to do that, you're going to start to be like, I would assume people are going to start to change their patterns of where they are. Like, oh, they're going to go find the greens, they're going to go here. And the whole world of grocery shopping will change because of how you're having people look at food. And that, I think that's one of the coolest things in the future to look forward to, is like, hey, this is what it's going to do to change health and nutrition. And that world, our world, is now going to start to battle big food. And I'm all for it every single day.
Same here. Things have to change. And the brands know that as well. I think when we look at this, we can vote with our dollars. As consumers, we have tremendous power to shift supply and what is on the shelves. At the end of the day, we are in a capitalist country that has capitalist incentives. And where our dollars flow is where attention goes. And you can see that in the food industry and how they have invested in new brands and new products over the last 5 years. The large CPGs, consumer packaged good companies like PepsiCo, Kraft Heinz, General Mills, they have been making acquisitions of smaller, better for you brands because that is where attention and money is flowing, and they know they need to diversify. A lot of these brands that you and I grew up on as kids that we're targeting to kids that are just wildly unhealthy. And most people know they are dying. They're dying slowly, but they are dying. And it takes a really long time for a nationally recognized brand that is a household name, that is loved by many, to die. but they are shrinking. And if you actually, earlier this year, Kellogg's on its quarterly earnings call announced that they were seeing significant declines in all their conventional categories. And the only product categories that they were seeing sales increases were their better for you healthy options, and that they were going to be all in on improving the health of their product portfolio over the coming year and beyond. And that is just one example of our dollars make a difference. And quick note on children's foods or foods marketed to kids. When we did a small analysis of food products marketed to kids. We looked at about 1,800 products that are specifically marketed to children across 19 major kids brands. And the findings for me were pretty troublesome and surprising. We saw that when you actually look at foods marketed to kids, they score 16.5% lower than the overall food supply and contain 64% more sugar, and we're 2 times more likely to be highly processed. We are adding more sugar to kids' foods marketed to kids than we are other foods. We are processing them more, and they're generally scoring lower. And when we talk about the health crisis in this country, it starts with children. Pre-diabetes and diabetes in kids is on the rise. And that should be unacceptable to everybody, whether you have a kid or not. And it needs to change. And I think one of the ways that we can really change it is, 1, educating ourselves as consumers, as parents, and 2, voting with our dollars, because these brands will respond. At the end of the day, they want to make money. PepsiCo is not going to go out of business in our lifetime. And we need to show them that we want better food and we're willing to put our dollars where our mouth is.
Yeah, that's crazy about the kid or children food stat. I'd assume most of the food were either in the yellow, orange, and red categories. If you're seeing those numbers, like how many are really like children's foods, or like omitting like fruits and vegetables, but even like the fruits that are, remember back in the day, we probably had the peaches in the cup that were like bathed in syrup, and we're like, oh, we're eating peaches and it's healthy. Like that can't rank high, but it doesn't surprise me, but that stat about children's food should shock a lot of people and probably have them take a step back and say, yeah, like we're starting this at a young age, and this is the problem, because those foods that are highly palatable and good, when kids go off to college is hard because what choices do you have to make? You have thousands of choices in the dining hall, and you're like, okay, what am I doing now? And it's based off of what they're doing as children. But they said back earlier, you're now putting scores to this. Children's food is scoring terrible. Yeah, people are going to start to look at that and go, okay, this food is bad. Money talks, and these companies are going to go, what do we have to do to change?
Yeah, we're training, when we're feeding young kids foods that are loaded with added sugar, that are highly processed, that are engineered by extremely skilled food scientists to be highly addictive and palatable and satiating. We are training our children to crave that. Right? It doesn't just start when we're 30 or have children and buy our first home. That's not when we're getting addicted to these foods. We're getting addicted to them as little kids growing up eating Lucky Charms or Fruity Loops or Lunchables, foods that are loaded with added sugar, loaded with added sodium, highly processed. And that needs to shift, right? Because to your point, we're getting trained to want and desire the wrong things. We're being fed addictive foods, and that needs to stop. And it is a responsibility as a parent to do what you can to try and counter that, because your kids are not able to regulate for themselves alone how much sugar they're going to consume.
Yeah.
It tastes great. The kid's going to want the food with sugar. And are you buying it? Are you putting it in the pantry? Are you making it easily accessible, or is it a treat? And I think that's just a question that parents need to ask themselves.
Yep. And it is crazy because I'm sure you see on social medias and Instagram that like the cereal in Canada is different than the cereal here. It's the exact same company, but different ingredients. And it always makes me think when I was a kid, I had cousins that are in Germany. My mom would always send boxes of Captain Crunch over. And I'm like, why are you doing that? Why can't they just, but that food doesn't exist over there, or that the Americanized sugar, like addictiveness doesn't exist over there. And it was almost like, yeah, like my mom was like, yeah, we're kind of shipping like contraband over it because it doesn't exist. But it goes to show you where we can change in this country, and the steps that we're taking through GreenChoice and through what you guys are doing are immense. And I know we're kind of coming up to a hard break, but I want to finish with where can people find your app? Where can people find what you do? Then they can go there and start to change their own habits, behavior, and then help influence other people.
Sure. You can find the GreenChoice app by searching in your app store, iOS or Android, for GreenChoice Food Scanner. It's completely free to use and available to anyone in the US, anywhere. That's how you can find GreenChoice. And if you want to learn more about our work or how we're engaging in driving some of this change we've talked about today, just check us out at greenchoice.co.
Awesome. Well, man, we appreciate you coming on.
Matt Gluckman and Eric Menchie here from Think Fitness Life. Our entire careers have been dedicated to fitness, particularly how the mind helps the body. We've been around gyms and nutrition strategies for 25 plus years collectively, and nothing harms or helps better than your own mind, untrained or trained. Pushing beyond your limits, overcoming whatever's thrown your way, and making the decision to show up day in and day out as a lifestyle takes more soul than sand. And what I mean by that is when you can get your mindset and heart leading you consistently in the direction of your goals and dreams, well, it's just a matter of time before you have the performance, physique, or quality of life you're yearning for. See, your thoughts will stem from your beliefs, which will then lead you to action, which develop into your behavior and ultimately lead you to results. It's really that simple. Our process takes time and it takes open communication. It's amazing what pops up along the fitness journey to betterment, and we can be there every step of the way. To learn more or apply for coaching, visit www.thinkfitnesslife.com. Start recreating your life today.